Alright, back at some crazy midnight shit. Because my phone rings all day and I can't get a fucking thing done. Anyway, we got behind me a 1982 Chevy. We're going to get right at it. Chevy stepside. We are putting, I think it's a 3 or 4 inch drop on this whole thing. I want to say it's 1982. She's got a strong, healthy 350. And man, it don't leak. Sounds amazing, runs good. We're going to be replacing the lower control arms, the upper control arms, new bushings with these arms. Everything in boxes right now. These are the uppers complete package. Don't mess with those bolts. They should all bolt on through there and there. And then we got another pile of parts over here too. These big boxes are the lower arms. We got drop spindles for the front and a C-notch kit, which we'll be getting installed. And I have a previous video on almost the same truck. And we're going to be cutting the frame, notching it. The bed's got to come up. But we'll do it one piece at a time. Oh, bear with me. I'll try to make this quick, fellas. I know you don't like watching hour-long videos. I don't either. Alright, back at it. Okay, now I got all the boxes opened up. We got spindles in here. 3-inch drop spindles with part numbers. You're going to be using your old bearings for what I can see. Every kit is different, so make sure you inventory before you throw something in the garbage. Okay, now I simply line this stuff up the way it goes on the vehicle. Okay, now and you'll notice RH, right hand. So that'd be if you're sitting in the vehicle, for all the dumbass people out there, for all the good ones, thanks for watching. But anyway, right hand, right hand. And the same on the upper control arm as well. This, somewhere labeled here, upper A arm. All of them are tagged somehow. And you can see RH, right hand. Same deal with the other side. LH, left hand. LH, left hand. This one came with shocks. Lower and upper control arms. Spindles. And brake calipers. Do notice that these don't have bearings, and there's a seal that pops in on the back behind the back bearing. So I probably just go to the auto parts store and get those brand new. Reuse your castle nuts off your original spindles. We have simply yanked this apart. All this crusty, nasty stuff's coming off anyway. We're going to start out. You got these 2 U-bolts right here and right here. And I always try to tend to hit these with like a wire brush, even on a hand one or something, there and there. And then on the back as well. Now these front ones will be popping off here and here. But this whole setup, be careful. These springs will shoot out and hurt you real good like. So, yeah, don't just pop that. I normally put this down on the jack, on the ground, because we're on a lift right now. Lower it down, put a jack on it, drop the pressure off of it. Undo your inner castle nut right here with cotter pin. And then you got one more right here that looks like a dirt mound with a little thing sticking out. And then San Andreas fault in the spindle. Okay, so we're going to get to work, fellas. I'll probably try to pop off the steering tie rod ends as well. I like to smack them from the side. If they don't do it, heat them up a little bit, but don't melt your rubber. Try not to damage that rubber. It holds in your grease. After you undo the castle nut right here with the cotter pin as well. Other than that, you got your shock, upper and lower mount. Those are simple. And we will be putting a whole new control arm there and whole new control arm there. Now this brake, easiest way I found to do this is pop it off. And use like a bungee or a thicker nylon tie. And just hang it off something right there so there's no stress on the brake line. And it'll be the same. Now we're going to do the front end of this one first. And these are easy. Pop that out. And I can actually show you in a minute. Pull a cotter pin, castle nut in there. Keep in mind, when you tighten these up, barely past hand tight. You want them to spin, but not be loose. So, there's my heads up on that. Same deal, hang your brake, undo all your stuff, and get at it, fellas. Bear with me, and I'll show you how I do it anyway. Alright, I'm working on all this. Just popped off that brake line 13 mil bolt inside, nut outside, goes through there. Tie that up simply to the frame, hold it in place, pad still in place. Okay, now this, like I was telling you before, whack from the side, and a couple taps will normally bring it up. There we go. Bad boys up. Let me back out here a little bit. And I normally like to put all my nuts back in place. Ha ha! Wonder why I have so many STDs. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so that's off. Now, I normally just cut these out because honestly, in this kit, it has brand new ones anyway. So we're going to pop our stuff back on. And I think we're going to grab our shock upper and lower neck, since we do have new shocks back there on the ground. All four corners. And the lowering springs should actually be a little less tension on them because they're 3 inches shorter. Or the version is for the lift on the truck. Therefore, it'll be a shorter spring, easier to go in. This one's a little tall, so it's going to give you a little resistance when you're pulling out. Like I said, be careful. This thing will pop out the side and hit you in the face. Yeah, nice crud. But, yeah, there you go. Bear with me. I'm going to keep on going. All right, back at it. And I found my simple little setup, which will slide through the hole in the spring. And then this rides on the bottom. Nothing fancy. But like I said, it slides up in here in the spring. The ears grab the spring and pull it down against the bottom, which takes all the pressure off, and then we can remove this whole piece in one shot, pain-free, and nobody gets hurt. So let me get all this set up and I'll show you exactly how it worked out. 5-minute little setup, save you one heck of a headache. All right, now like I was just demonstrating a second ago, we're going to take this. Use anti-seize on that thread of that, by the way. But that's how that mounts. Something simple. Just drive it on in. Now that the pressure's off there, we should be able to break free all this stuff. And yeah, it should be a nice piece of cake walk out in the park after this. So bear with me, I'll get it popped apart and I'll show you what's next. Okay, I'm getting worn out. Couple whacks, pickle fork. We're loose, pressure's relieved off the spring. We're gonna go ahead and pop this top piece off. There are shims up here, these little tabs. What I normally do to keep the alignment and the camber halfway decent, keep these shims. Make a pile on the floor, or cart, or magnetic tray, whatever you got. Or maybe even write them down or Ziploc bag them. Put them in a bag so you put the same shimming back in that came off. Start with that, and then once you get everything set on the ground, you can readjust all that. But put back in what you had to start with, and it'll help you halfway be back to what it was before you started. Well, bear with me, we'll pop this off. All right, we just pulled the upper side off. This is the upper control arm. Just left the ball joint there, popped it up and out of the lower. There you go. Now, like I was talking about these shims, just pull these off. One of these days, I'm going to get myself a nice tripod. Till then, I'm ghetto fabulous, you know. Anyway, I'm going to pull these off. There's the back ones. And we'll put them in a different pile. I like to lay mine simply next to the area I'm working with, at least out of minimal. And this one's got quite a few shims, so I'm kind of wondering how it's going to go back together. Okay, so it's different pile, bam, bam, front, back, back. And those go on the back side of this, between the frame and the mount. Okay, so there's that. We're going to go ahead and work on the next thing. That U-bolt, that U-bolt. And I'm probably only going to make camera footage of one side, because it's the same on both sides, just reversed. And this has already got the tension pretty much tightened right into the lower arm. Once we get off, then we can go ahead and release this whole setup, let that out, pop it out. We're a wrap on this side. I'll simply clean all this stuff. Customer doesn't want it totally detailed like I normally do, but each his own. There you go. bear with me and I'll get this one off too. Right now that we're back at it, one thing you'll notice about the spring, these are lowered springs. But simply, these are going to make it ride stock, but at a lower height on the vehicle itself. They do have one smaller end. The smaller end goes up into wrapping around here, and that's a rubber piece to keep it from banging and clanging. Okay, now that we have the lower control arm, you're going to notice a hole there and a hole there. Those have to go in the dowel pins right there and there when you tighten this up. If they are not, they don't seat in the half circle here like they're supposed to, just for your knowledge. So we're going to go ahead and find the A-arm, the lower A-arm for the passenger side, which I showed you before, RH, right hand, and that's if you're sitting in the vehicle. Well, now that we got that all set up, this will be bolting on the same way. Got the same dowel mark or line up pins in this as the factory. And I believe these are from like 67 to 84 or something like that, all the same hardware. And we're gonna put the dog to work. So bear with me, we'll go a little farther, but this is basically fully disassembled and ready to be reassembled. And normally I would paint this all up, but hey, I do each customer differently. They get what they pay for, and everybody tends to be happy. Oh, bear with me, we'll keep on going. All right, back at it. That smoke coming out of my head. Anyway, we got our dowel pins lined up above these, and as you can see, they're nice and tight. There's no, hold on, there you go. No slop in there, no distance, no play. Nice and flush up to it on both, and you know you got it that way. I use a little bit of a, per se, leverage bar when I'm tightening these, you want them good and tight. And definitely recheck all this hardware in like a couple weeks after driving it. Make sure everything is still snug, because stuff like this does work and move. Just like these are very, very tight actually. I'm gonna probably have to use a ratchet strap to get it up. But we're gonna mount our spring on the plate just like we did when we pulled it off that one. Other than the brand new, make sure the small side's up. Mount it the same way. Leave yourself maybe a third of the top of that spring, because that thing's gonna have to maneuver getting out as far as the puller. And I'll show you that in a minute. We're gonna get the bottom situated and then work on the top. Do put in the same spacers on the top control arm as you pulled out for now, and this should line up pretty close. You will have to get an alignment after any modification like this. It's always a great idea. So we're gonna get to it, fellas. Bear with me. All right, continuing on the front section, this piece is all mounted, torqued down, tightened. Now we've reset the upper one. This will be the hole for the brake line. Put your hardware back in there, same stuff, same bolt. I prefer to use new if possible. These are for multiple applications, so this is actually for that. So you don't really need that. You can leave it in place so it doesn't hurt anything. We did put our shimming back in there and there. Those are torqued down, torqued down. Now we're simply ready to pop the spring in with the hardware to hold it compressed. And then this is going to probably use a ratchet strap to go upward, because these are really tight when they're brand new. All right, here we go. Did a few things. Got this all tightened up. If you notice, the spring is really collapsed there. Yes, we have a couple loose ones on the top. Not a big deal. You don't want to be buried in the metal hat here. Beside that, ratchet strap to kind of hold it up. I did loosen this just a little bit on both sides, and that makes it move a little easier. You will want to snug that up when you get everything back together. Go through and torque everything. We got our upper one set up. We're going to loosen that one and that one to make this drop and work with us a little easier on putting the spindle on. The old spindles, but we are going to rob the bearings of those, and we've got our new spindles right here. Alright, now that we're working on putting the reassembling the whole thing, this is the right hand spindle, same deal. Every part is for passenger side or driver side. This comes kind of covered. This little netting comes right off. We are going to use our old bearings. The kit did not come with new ones. Be careful of these threads where the castle nut go. Hang on, back up. Okay, and this simply, those two holes, top and bottom, Now, the brake caliper mounting goes to the back. This is for the steering. Same deal. Steering, brake caliper will fit right here. Bottom hole here, top hole here. So we're gonna go ahead and set this all up, and I had loosened all the control arms so they can move a little more freely as we do this. Let me get this popped on. All right, getting a little farther. We just put back on the castle nuts on the tie rod end. Lined up the setting for the new pin. Lined up the upper ball joint. We're going to go ahead and put new cotter pins in all three of those. Being new, we need to add a grease zerk to that. And on the bottom, grease zerk to that. Make sure, double check all your hardware. And we put in our stock shims that were in there before. Hopefully provided that they're straight. Tightened everything, all of our hardware back in place. Really important, this spring. You look up in there, it's got a, hold on, let me try to get light in there. You look up in there, you can see the circle. Well, the top of that spring's got a rod in there, or when this thing goes up and down, it's going to be making a lot of clunking. And then one of the other parts, you'll be adding back in your little bracket that holds the brake line. We're going to go ahead and grab our old wheel bearings real quick off the old spindle. Put those on, and we got a brand new rotor, just old bearings. We're going to repack them. And then go ahead and situate. Hold on, let me back this camera up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and those two bolts that hold on the brake hardware for the caliper. And boom, this side's pretty much done. Go ahead and re-grease everything you got. New grease, and call it a day. Well, there's one front side. I'll probably not tape the other side, but I'll take a couple more shots before I'm done with this one. Let's see exactly what I did, how I did it. And then this side's got the 3-inch drop spindle. And this is a 3-inch drop. So bear with me. We're going to keep on going. Yeah. All right, now that we're at it, let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, we got our inner bearing, which goes closest to the spindle and rides behind. And also that goes like, get a good look. That goes like that. If you look at the pitch of the race in there, to that. And then after you put that in, same deal. Seal goes one way. And these seal and bearing look okay. I'm just going to simply repack these. They don't look that bad. I'm going to use marine grease. This stuff has always seemed to hold up a little better for me. And then this is your outer bearing, which goes closest to the castle nut. Then there's a slot on the spindle. This only goes on one way. And then your castle nut. And basically just pass hand tight. I normally tighten it down with a small wrench. And then back it off a smidge. Just make sure that this spins freely. Not too tight and not wiggly. Just find the sweet spot, guys. So bear with me. I'll get all that together. I just got all that greased up, every fitting. Tie rod end, upper and lower ball joints to where the grease is just starting to pop out the seal. So you know she's full. All right, now it's time for the back section. This is a pretty universal kit for the rear end notch kit. Bell-Check 6850-010. So here we go. Anyway, basically I'm going to unbolt the bed, lift it up. Now you do want to get up in there. You see that line? Yeah, that's got to go. Same deal, brake line on that side. And all you really need to do is just pull them away from the frame. Me, you can bolt these, but I weld mine. Now when this is in place, it's going to come in from the outside. It'll slide in from where the wheel's at and basically fit right here. But it's going to be about 4 inches to my left. And it's going to take place. That's going to go. And I like to plasma cut these. I use a marker. I just simply mark it out. We're going to lift the bed, kind of preset that up, pull the lines away. And give me a minute and I'll get it all going for you. All right, as showing before, this side goes towards the inner of the vehicle. This is towards the outer. I wanted to get you a better setup. Basically, this is going to be sliding in right there. Trick to this is, if you can get the bed, there's 8 bolts on this bed. And honestly, if you can just get it up like an inch where you can weld it on top, sides. And I like to weld in these holes as well because this is a permanent thing for this truck. You can always lift it, but what we're setting up will be good. And then you simply slide it on. Use a marker. Now, if you turn this around, it's super easy. And the only piece that you got to mark out is the center hump. And make sure you leave yourself maybe a 1/16, 1/8 inch just on this area here in the center. Other than that, I use a plasma cutter. You can use a cutoff, whatever you prefer. It all works the same, ends up the same place. But I'm going to lift the bed slightly and clean it up good with a die grinder or sand or whatever. The plasma cuts real good when it's a clean. And just make sure you got it scribed out nicely. Leave yourself about an 1/8 inch roughly, and that way you got some wiggle room if you have any mistakes. It works the best for me. Alright, bear with me, mofos. Alright, back at it, and we had a little bump on the front end go wrong here. Basically, I went to put the stock setup on the front spindles as far as the new discs. And this whole kit was, you know, nice, but I don't know why they didn't include new wheel bearings or seals or any of that. And this is a Beltec. I don't know, the customers had this stuff for a while. So I did go down to the local auto parts store, found some that were a perfect match to fit front and or inner and outer, and the back inner side seals as well. And they had to fit on the spindle, and they had to fit in the bearing races on this Beltec. So, long story short, I found some. They worked out perfect. We're going to go ahead and pop all this on now. And we're all ready. Everything else worked great. All the zerks are in. Everything's greased. We're looking good. And there you go. Everything's done. But we're going to pop these on and I'll continue. And then I'm going to jump back on the back section, which I actually just took a video. I jumped ahead of myself. So bear with me. I'm going to pop all this on. I'll get a few snaps of it. Let's see what we got, how it ended up. But the front end's done after this. Alright. Portion 912 with this dirty, shiny chrome thing. I call it a rotor. Okay. We use the old castle nuts in there with a brand new cotter. I use brand new cotter every time. Brake calipers on this truck. All custom stuff will tend to be just a smidge off. Well, be prepared for, say, I had to just slightly touch these with the 2-inch die grinder, just barely, and then everything slid together. And also, being a drop spindle, I don't know if it's just this truck. I never had to deal with this on the last one, but the brake line, I had to give it a slight nudge too, and I put just a little bit of a heat gun to it when I did so. You just don't want to get it too hot at all. Slightly warm works. Okay, I got a feeling we're going to have to do the same. And this side, which is wide open, I wanted to show you. We got our brand new spindles. We got brand new bearings and that brand new seal wraps around there. I'm going to see what we're doing about tie rod ends. They're getting a little sloppier. And then basically open your caliper all the way up because this is a brand new loader. It's wider. And then we got all our bed bolts loose. We're going to go ahead and crack that up off there with the forklift. And get that going too. And we got to flop the axle on top of the springs. And this kit actually comes with some of these, but they're made for the bottom side. Because when we do this, this is going to be riding on top of there with shorter shocks as well. So once we get that all flopped and once I get the bed up, I'll show you what we got going on. And then your notch, this makes it nice to plasma cut when everything's clean, and the best to weld as well. So there you go. Simple things, man, simple things. All right, back section, baby. Anyway, we took them plates right there on the ground and put it in the position it belongs in. Can you see the marker? All right. Long story short, though, we ain't cutting that. The only things we're going to cut is a slice here and up and follow this line. And I'm actually going to stay on the inside of this line about 1/4 inch And why I do that, because this is marked on the other side of the metal. So compensate at least a 1/4 inch. Give yourself maybe an 1/8 inch or so around. And then same deal. We're going to cut right here. And we're only lifting this bed about 2-3 inches. Just enough to get my welder inside of there in a minute. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and whack this out. I can't really hold my phone and do it, but I will show you how it looks when I'm done. Right, and I like to leave the bed low the first, so it holds it nice and tight to the frame. And then we'll raise the bed after this so we know we got a flush mount and the frame is not twisted. I do have these long jack stands set up where there's not pushing up nor dropping down. Well, bear with me. We'll pop this on and we're going to weld it. All right, new day. Haha, new problem. Okay, we're trying to get all these. These are so corroded. I'm going to have to cut the U-bolts off, all the hardware. These springs are somehow built or something. They're not original, I'll tell you that. But anyway, we're going to pop that rear shackle, front shackle, get the U-bolt hardware off. I do have this on stands. It is on my car lift. And just make sure you're sturdy. Long story short, we're going to pull these springs off, out, put the axle on top of them, and then we got to remount the hardware that will be going on the bottom side. Rule of thumb, clean all your metal before you weld. It works a lot better. And then we got all the new hardware, extended shackles, and then these will be going on the bottom of the axle like that now, and then the new U-bolt will be going down that way, 2 per side. And then we should be good to go. So we're going to keep on going, see how we end up, and go from there. Bear with me and I'll keep on the footage here. Yeah, oh boy, this thing's been fun. Took me like 2 hours to get the hardware out to drop the spring. And then basically I took the spring and moved it from, slid it out, moved it back under. Then these plates come included in the kit. I think my camera's dirty. Anyway, there you go. This gets welded. Cleaned your axle good, and I cleaned the edges of that so it'd weld nice. Then we got to line up this side too. But yeah, this hardware, I put NICs on it going back in because it was ridiculously welded in there. Oh, there you go. Everything else is looking pretty kosher. Other than these springs I don't like. These are going to have to get swapped out. But long story short, there you go. Okay, let me go ahead and get the the hardware tacked back on. And we're going to wrap this up. Alright. We had a little bit of a tight squeeze. The angle of this drive line must not be the original one. There's not much play in it. But we did get it all situated. Tack weld, a good inch weld on each corner there. Then you can remount these, and as you go deeper with them, they're kind of set up for multiple applications, so you got to cut them at the end. You don't want these dragging on the ground when you're done. Okay, I'll decide that. A little bump stop through the pre-drilled hole right there. I ain't tightened that one yet. And then about the last thing left we have is the shocks, and I think we're kosher. Bear with me. We'll get that popped on and finish the video off. Alright, here we go. We ran into a problem late last night before this thing went to go home. If you look at it, uneven. Simple conclusion, somebody has fixed this frame. It's actually slightly bent. I've done this a good few times and never ended up like this, and was unhappy with the conclusion when the customer went to pick it up. It's kind of a different one for me. But anyway, long story short, if you look at it, the truck was slightly offset. Found on the front, here's the springs that came out. If you look at them, one is actually taller than the other by about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. And also in the back, the rear spring shackles and mounts, one is mounted about 1/2 inch higher on the other side, or on this side, opposed to the other side. Someone tried to fix a bent frame, basically. I'm gonna see what we can end up with to get this adjusted. And if you look at it, this is a 3-inch lowering kit. This isn't supposed to be crooked like that. They normally line up level every time. Long story short, I think I'm going to remount the rear shackle setups, take some measurements, and try to just nip this right in the butt. And I'll make a conclusion video here. But yeah, I normally don't end up like this. Bear with me. We'll make one more video at the end of this and show you where I landed, and I'll get some good stuff as far as footage underneath the frame and the truck, and show you how we fix this. And you know what happens, but normally jobs like this, I don't tend to take on too much fixing puzzles of other problems that it has. But I'm not happy with sending a truck down the road when somebody's paid for the work. Good dude. So I'm gonna be good dude on my part too. Bear with me, there will be a part 2. Alright, now that I pulled out all my hair, had this thing back on the rack. Actually, this thing was really screwed up, and I found this out last minute after I dug the grease and grime off. These spring perches had been moved up. If you can see the existing, they were up about 2.5 inches. Really messed me up on the lowering on this thing, but long story short, let me zoom out a little bit. We actually came out with a fair outcome. The truck sits pretty level. It's not squatted in the back. And the driver's side was extremely high. I'd say she's still about 1/4 of an inch off, but really close. By the time the customer sits in it, it'll actually be sitting nice. So this be the end. Thanks for watching. And yeah, 101, don't do a truck that's been modified or the frame's twisted. There you go. Thanks, fellas.